Adam gathered his students around the table. A figure was laid out, long since dead, but well preserved. The remnants of the Merfolk was their topic today. He showed them the webbing and fins, and how their muscles linked together. They went through the whole biology, and how it differed from their own. Welcome to Mythical Phylogeny Adventures. I'm your guide, Jason. Today, I want to do a deep dive into the Merfolk and their biology. There are dozens of variations of Merfolk. Literally, every culture has their own take on the Merfolk, and with it has come many discussions on their biology. The first one is skin tone. With the live-action Little Mermaid and the race swap of Ariel, a flurry of discussion arose regarding it. Personally, I don't care for race swapping, but I want to look at this as objectively as possible. Now, is there an actual color we would expect them to be? Now, human skin tones do serve a purpose. Paler tones are better set to absorb sunlight when it is scarce, and darker tones protect against it when excessive. Hence, the evolutionary reason for a tan. And this would apply to Merfolk. Water gets darker the deeper you go, and there is less sunlight fairly quickly. So, on the surface, it looks logical that they would be pale. But when you peer a little deeper, it does fall apart. Tell me, what happens if human skin is left in salt water for a few days? Well, if you are in the pool for a while, your fingers get all pruny, don't they? Well, when human skin is in the water for extended periods of times, it will begin to break down in what is called maceration. And where do Merfolk live? In the ocean, which means if their skin is the same as human skin, it would literally rot off them. They lose key nutrients, and their skin would actually absorb water. Now, this means that the skin of a mermaid cannot be the same as that of a human. So, could it be the same skin as a whale? Maybe, but since Merfolk are said to be fish and have scales, I don't think a mammal is the right choice. Now, if you look at saltwater fish, you will find that they do appear in every color. So it seems that any skin tone would work here. But if we look just a bit deeper, there is another issue. Do we have any scuba divers listening? Tell me, what happens to the color of objects as you go deeper and deeper into the ocean? Well, there are pictures of different colors at different depths. Colors become washed out the deeper you get. Most start looking black pretty quickly. And the reason this is important is, where do Merfolk live? At what depth? Chances are they aren't near the surface, which means we should look to other fish that live at such a depth. Gray, blue, and brown would help camouflage them, like how sharks do. Red would appear black, but colors like pink and orange would actually stand out for a longer time. Generally, it would depend on how the Merfolk operate on their color. Brighter colors would work better, it seems, if they want to be seen. If not, darker colors for stealth. Now, the next one I have seen swimming around the net is, should Merfolk be fat? The logic comes from the temperature of the water, and the water is a heat sink. It tends to draw heat away from objects. To prevent hypothermia, they would need insulation. We do see this in things like whales, walruses, and seals, with all their blubber. So, would mermaids have the same thing? Well, are they mammals? For the most part, that is uncertain. Yes, they are said to be fish with scales. While fish do have a little fat, they are cold-blooded, unlike mammals. This helps them in the cold water. So, are Merfolk warm or cold-blooded is our real question. If they are cold-blooded, then no. There is little need for them to be fat. But if warm-blooded, then there are issues. they would need to maintain their body temperature, and the best way to do that is with insulation. So they would need blubber to stay warm, or fat, but they need to swim, which means they would need a form designed for the high resistance of water. Now, we do see this with whales and seals. They have a tube-like shape, no fat rolls hanging around, nice and streamlined shape, and this is what a merfolk should be. Now, of course, some are going to say that a walrus doesn't match that, and that is partially true. They still have a mostly streamlined shape while swimming, just a bit more folds when standing up. Yet, they tend to favor colder waters usually, so perhaps it may matter where the merfolk lives. Generally, I would think a longer body if they have blubber on. It is well documented that there are fish that can go from one gender to another, usually male to female, but a few which go the other way. This is caused by a variety of stimuli, social interactions, population ratios, and outside influences. Now, would it make sense in merfolk? The reason fish are able to do this is that they lack the external sexual organs. But merfolk do have a secondary characteristic: boobs. The females are said to have a female human torso. So, would they have them? And that depends on the level of investment in their young. This is key. One of the critical components of a civilization is the ability to pass what one generation learned on to the next. Part of why mammals have become a dominant faction on the world is due to this. Most fish perform absolutely no parental care. They drop the egg, fertilize them, then either die or disappear. For a culture to form, this would need to change. Rather than invest in large broods, going for smaller broods with more investment would make sense. Thus, breastfeeding could make sense. Now, there is a problem with secreting a liquid underwater. It dissolves. But whales do this, so we can copy them. Except their milk is rather thick, more of a syrup-like substance, and their breasts are very slight. Now, back to the topic at hand. This would be a more involved developmental process, but not impossible. Due to the breasts, going male to female would be more likely. Going the other way is possible in theory, but potentially taking longer, and would definitely lead to issues in their society. And that is something that each writer would have to address on their own. Now, we got to the issue of communication. How do merfolk speak? Now, fish aren't exactly known for their sounds, but there are sea animals which are known for their vocalizations. Dolphins and whales. We sure are touching on them a lot here, aren't we? Fish don't have vocal cords, which is used to make sound. And we need to address their lung and gill system. Fish need to keep their mouth open, bring in water, run it down their throat and out and over their gills. Sound is made by expelling air from the lungs, which then goes over the vocal cords and altered by mouth and tongue shape. The design of the nasal cavity helps with some sounds. Now, do merfolk have lungs is the question. Many stories speak of them perched on rocks and reefs, where sailors see them. To do so, it seems to indicate that they can breathe air. Now, gills aren't very effective in the air, and lungs struggle underwater. I don't know if you have noticed, but scientists aren't that creative with naming things. Just look at the lungfish. A fish which can breathe air using a modified swim bladder. Sure, it is a freshwater fish, but it does work. Yet, their design tends to rely more on the lungs than the gills. It is a good starting point though. We do need to place the gills. In lungfish, they are located in the neck area, but a human-like torso would have a thin neck, and no room to provide the gills. So I would recommend the chest. That would line them up with the lungs and trachea the best, and place it next to the heart to circulate the blood. Some have suggested placing the gills on the abdomen, like the deep from the boys. And this isn't a bad location, except for a couple of issues. The distance from the heart means oxygenated blood needs to travel much further before going to the rest of the body. The second deals with the diaphragm, which separates the heart and lungs from the stomach and intestines, and helps with respiration of the lungs. But if we use the lungfish setup, there isn't a diaphragm, and this isn't as big an issue. To get them to speak, it would require something similar to the nasal structure found in dolphins. A vocal cord system wouldn't work well in water, and guess what? Dolphins don't have them. This would alter what sounds they produce. Now, this system would also work above water. The sounds are a bit off due to the speed which sound travels in water, but it does function. It would definitely take practice for them to speak with a human, but it is possible. Honestly, I was thinking there would be problems when I started this one. Adam watched as his students looked over the remains. It was a simple lesson, to be sure, yet important for their goals. Some would take adventuring, others diplomacy, and each needed to be ready for whatever they are forced to face. There is no end to the absurd ideas which can spawn for such a classic and well-known mythical creature. These are just a few of those which I have stumbled over. If there are any others you want me to look at, let me know. Thank you for watching, Inventors. Please return next time for the Mind Flayer. Until then, I'll see you on the roads.